Hello, and welcome back to Witchy Wisdom from Wisty's Witch Hat. I am Wysteria Root, and inside of this hat are your questions about the craft that I will answer to provide some guidance along your spiritual journey. Today's question: how does one explore their unique gifts, and where do they come from? Let's get right into it. So first and foremost, what is your unique gift? Everybody has their own unique energy signature inside of this lifetime. There's a lot of discussion in spiritual spaces about the ego, and while it is definitely good to not be egoic and you want to be humble, there's also something to celebrate about your ego because it is the part of you that is separate from the whole, right? There is a set of eyes or a set of ears who are listening and watching this video right now, who are experiencing life from your unique perspective. And never again will there be another living version of you. And so you possess these unique gifts, insights, traits that are only able to be expressed because of your unique lived experience. And also on a deeper level than that, you came here with some sort of soul mission, some sort of soul calling that really pulls on the unique essence that you possess. And so there's a couple of different ways to explore looking at your unique gifts. One of my favorite ones as a professional astrologer is reading astrology. This is why I love astrology so much. So in order to understand that, I'm going to explain to you what a natal chart is or what a horoscope is. When you look at an astrology chart, you're essentially looking at the address of your soul. In order to plot the points of the stars, you're going to look at the date, time, and location that you were born. And then it's going to generate that chart that's got all the lines on it and multiple layers of circles. And if you haven't started reading astrology yet, you're like, what is going on here? But then you start to learn how to decipher the key of what this information is. And essentially, it's a snapshot of what the universe looked like, at least from our earthly perspective, of the moment of your birth. And how are the energies going to influence who you are in this lifetime? Now, to take it even deeper, there's different components of the astrology chart. There are the planets, which move around, and you can think of the planets as different aspects of yourself. So when we get deeper into embodiment work and along the spiritual journey, you start to notice that this being that you are perceived as being a whole being, has a lot of different parts and facets within you that are expressed in different ways. Carl Jung, who is a very renowned psychologist and psychoanalyst, uses the word archetypes to describe and alters to describe the different facets of the self within. So some of these facets can include your inner masculine energy or your divine feminine energy. It can represent your inner teacher, your inner student. It can represent time and the areas where you need to have a lot of discipline or where you maybe could be restricting yourself. Another really common aspect is the shadow, right? It's like the parts of yourself that you sort of repress. And so when we look at the astrology chart, specifically the planets, that is going to talk about a specific area of your life, a specific area of your identity, and the way that it is influenced by the zodiac signs is where the planet is in relation to a constellation. So some say that the constellations are like the 12 faces of the divine, and it's sort of the major archetypes that are embodied, and all of the people on the planet are different combinations of these sort of characteristics and factors. And those stories go back to ancient times. We've been looking up at the stars, finding stories in them for as long as we've been able to have conscious thought. And so these archetypes are another term in the craft is called an egregore, which essentially is a thought form or a thought that a lot of people have put so much energy into that it sort of takes on a life of its own. And so the zodiac signs can be a really great representation of a communal cultural egregore because people from all over the world for thousands of years have been talking about, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and assigning meanings to those different things. And so when you have, let's say, your sun in Gemini, like the sun, it's the center of our universe, it's like the center of your being, it's your brightest light. It's the part of yourself that you sort of identify with and are very aware of because it's in the conscious awareness. And then it's being influenced by Gemini because it's in that quadrant of the Gemini zone. And so you maybe are going to have more traits of the divine twins, which has a lot of duality and sorts of things like that. And I've taught classes on this professionally, and so I can definitely link some more resources in the future that allow for going deeper if you want to have a professional training on how to be an astrologer. That's something that I do offer. And so that's kind of, or you can also just get an astrology reading from me, because that's the great place to start, right? Is the whole question is, how do I explore my unique gifts? First of all, look at your chart, or have an astrologer look at your chart, or have fun like going down the internet rabbit hole of what does it mean to have a Mars in Aquarius and a Venus in Taurus, and how do those different things influence my ability to manifest? Because with your Mars sign, it's like your will, it's how you enact things out into the world. And so it's like, if you have Mars in Aries and you want to really make something happen, you're going to want to use that like sort of Aries archetypal energy when you go about getting things done. So you're going to want to be adventurous and try new things and not be afraid to really put yourself out there and network and experiment. And then if you have your Venus sign, you take a look at that, and it's how you receive. It's how things tend to come to you, the things that inspire you, what makes you feel beautiful and confident. And so let's say that you have a Venus in Virgo, and so a lot of the ways that you're going to receive from the universe is going to be through your daily habits, your routines. It could be in areas where you are being of service to the collective, where you're going to get a lot of reciprocity back in return. You could also get a lot of gifts given to you by like tangible, practical, physical things. A lot of Venus and Virgos tend to be collectors and stuff like that. So you can go really, really deep into what are your unique gifts by looking at these different modalities like astrology. Another good one that I'm not as well versed in, so I won't really go into it, is human design can be used to really understand like your energy type and the way that you work best when it comes to output in the world, where an astrology reading is going to give you a bigger overview of kind of all of your different gifts. And also then if you start to look at the transits, you're going to get like real-time information about what's happening in the stars right now and the way that it affects you in your chart. Something that's really interesting about astrology is that there's sidereal, like Western astrology, and then there's also Vedic astrology. And Western astrology is a different calculation is done. So basically everything is calculated around the spring equinox, but it's not necessarily like accounting for the movement of the planets as the universe has expanded. And so it's sort of this like fixed time in a past paradigm. Think about the West real quick. That just sounds a little relevant to me. I don't know. Like, it sounds like sometimes when we have these personas in this world, like we're in that certain paradigm that's based off of a fixed point, like the Gregorian calendar and all of these things that were like set up forever ago that are still influencing us today. Where if you look at Vedic astrology, that's more like Eastern astrology, it's based off of the current movement of the planets and their current position. So you're likely to have a different chart in those two things. And so I find that for myself, I identify with my like Western astrology chart as sort of the character and the role that I'm playing in the paradigm that I'm living in. But I would like to explore, and I would love to hear from people who maybe live in different parts of the world or have done this sort of exploration, where I would imagine that if I were living in a completely different culture, like a more Eastern culture, I would be received in a very different way. And so I think that Eastern astrology could be a lot more about like the role that I would play in a different culture, the way that people would perceive my energy in different ways. So that's kind of the first step that I would say for looking into exploring your unique gifts is, and where do they come from? is your soul's blueprint, is the moment in time that you decided to incarnate on this planet, because it set off this chain reaction of events of like your family, which your family talks about, like you get a lot of inherited gifts from your family. You also get inherited karma from your family. And so those patterns that you're learning how to break, those tend to lead to gifts in the way that like sometimes our greatest difficulties are the things that we're able to help people with the most. Or you also maybe come from a family who has always been gifted in a certain area of thing, and so you were just like taught from a really young age, maybe music by your dad or something like that. And so that's kind of like a generational gift that you can carry on with you. And as far as the last way, it's the most organic way. How do I connect with my own gifts and where do they come from? It's different for every single person. Though I'm sure that like there's more and more science that's talking about the nature of consciousness creating reality and the power of thought and sound and all those sorts of things. But if you have a lot of earth signs in your chart, you might be more inclined to want to spend time in nature, connect with your hands, build things in order to connect more with your gifts, right? You might be more of a physical, tangible manifester, somebody who is a kitchen witch or an herbalist or works with the natural world. Like a lot of earth sign, like really dominant earth sign people, and some charts have like a bunch of different energies. So it's, like I said, it's very unique. This is sort of the categories that people tend to align with, especially when you're finding your own practice and your path. Maybe you want to work a lot with life and you want to work with living things. You want to work with the cycles of death and rebirth. You want to work with gardening and composting and all those sorts of things in the natural world. Or maybe you're much more air focused, which is all intellect, it's your mind. And so you're a poet, you're a communicator, you're a networker, you know, like you're really able to share your words in a way that it invokes energy in other people. And that can be maybe your domain. Maybe you want to do a lot of research and understand things from a really historically informed context and perspective. That tends to be very airy as well. Another path that people can tend to take to connect with their own gifts is the water path, which is going to be a lot of dance, a lot of movement, a lot of somatic body work. So things that help you process the energy inside of your body, understanding energy work. I find that water people tend to be really gifted natural healers of other people, as long as they don't take on too much of it, because they're able to kind of sense what's happening in the body. So a lot of body work can really be connected to water because of, you know, we're mostly water. Also, I feel like a lot of water people end up being like birth workers, like midwives and people who are really good at helping people manifest their dreams, whether that's a literal baby from the womb or an idea from a literal dream or something like that, the subconscious realm. Watery people tend to be able to take that concept that was once nothing and really bring it and like steward it into reality. Like they're not creating it, that's much more earthy, but they're like holding the space for it to enter and for it to come through. Watery people tend to be really powerful channelers as well, so they definitely like are going to want to learn how to ground, which is a whole other video that we can do, because it's easier for water people to tap into the other realms, into spirit and stuff like that. And so then the other path that you might be really interested in is going to be fire, right? Think of like a monk when I think of fire. I think of somebody who has a lot of discipline, because if they didn't, they would be like a dangerous weapon. You know, like fire people are going to be courageous and bold, and learning how to be very decisive with their actions is going to be beneficial because they just have so much power. Fire people tend to also be really social, really public, really like explorative, initiating, those sorts of things. A lot of fire energy, we can think about like the grandfather fire. Like humanity has been sitting around a fire forever, and we've been feeding our stories into it. And so I like to think of fire as our story keeper and as our protector. And so oftentimes fire people are going to be best connected with their purpose and their path while they're serving their community in some sort of collaborative social way, is where those sorts of people tend to do the best. You also can think of fire as like electricity. So anywhere where there's a lot happening or flashing lights or something like that, like there's fire energy, there's bursts of oomph there. And so when it comes to like, how do you identify what your gift is? It's like, what are you drawn to? Where do you shine? Where do you feel the most uncomfortable but excited to learn more? And also, what trials is the universe presenting you right now? Because the universe is always looking to help us hone our gifts. So you can look at the difficult things in your life, you can look at the setbacks or things like that, and instead of being like, oh, like I'm held down by this obstacle that I'm against, you can look at it as like, no, this is the, I don't know anything about knife sharpening, but this is the knife sharpener and I am the blade, and the universe putting me through this obstacle is me just like honing this skill. So what skill is the universe asking you to hone right now? Because that's part of your gift. Another good way to look at it is you are a manifestation of like the continuation of both of your parents. So in what ways do you represent their growth, their transformation? Like in what ways are you embodying both their gifts and their weaknesses? And in that space, like getting really, really close to the roots of your physical body is a great way to understand what your unique gifts are and how to work with them in the world. So I hope that this planted a little seed for you. I'd love to know what you're resonating with, what you're learning right now in your own personal journey. And if you're looking for any spiritual insight, I offer tarot readings, astrology readings, all those sorts of things, and you can message me down below. Or I also have a community with free offerings with practical magic sent right to your inbox if you want to find out how to use your phone as a tool or tap deeper into your intuition and just continue along your conscious healing journey. So can't wait to see you soon, and I hope you have a fabulous day. And if you have any questions for the hat, you know where to put them. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.